Part 3. Offers.
Sir, long-range sensors have detected an ascendancy power signature entering the system.
Put the colony on alert. I want strike teams on standby. Keep sensors at maximum power. Drak has a history with the ascendancy.
And much of the galaxy has a history with the ascendancy. They make sure of that. Picture any hostile space empire, and you're probably already halfway there. Drak has fought in 2 separate wars against the ascendancy, and only had to work alongside them once. And those were, let's say, extenuating circumstances.
He's always wondered if the ascendancy would show back up after Ipska. It would appear they have.
Tense minutes tick by as Command waits and prepares for what might be a surprise attack.
As the ship approaches, they're able to get more information on it. It's a single ship.
Small, likely a scout craft.
Its weapons aren't powered up.
In fact, sir, the saucer it's hailing us. Drak pauses. Could it be? Would they have...
Open communications.
Now you, like Drak, may have already figured out what has happened, and can probably understand how terribly embarrassed the leader of this, colony? Military installation?
It doesn't matter. He feels really stupid and hasn't even heard the affirmative yet.
Wah! Yeah, that would be unmistakably Camille.
Drak is 90% sure she just said,
"Hello, I'm here!" While Camille, Ellie, and all the other clones from their world are virtually incomprehensible, outside of each other anyway, and can't even be translated by a lexicon.
Drak has spent a lot of time around both Camille and Ellie, to the point that he can sort of understand them.
Really, it's more like reading vibes about a situation, and Camille doesn't read very alarmed or endangered at the moment.
Camille, do you realize just how many people you scared?
Oh.
Let me get in there. Hello? Drak? It's Julian. I'm sorry we didn't send a message sooner, but this ship has remarkably short-range communication systems for a conquering race. So please, don't shoot us out of the sky. Cancel the alert. Tell the strike teams to stand down. Call up engineering and tell them to get a hub link rep to be installed.
A hub link, as you might surmise, is a broadband transmission device that allows communication across solar systems, and even a whole galaxy.
Albeit the longer the distance, the longer the delay. For most interstellar communities, they are standard equipment, but not for Ascendancy scout craft.
The saucer was directed on where to land. Suspicious eyes watched it warily as it flew overhead to its destination. Drak led a small escort to meet them there at the landing pad. It really wasn't a landing pad, more of a flat bed of rock and sand that they had cleared of plant debris and erected a few rough buildings to store supplies in. There were a few small transports scattered about, far too small to make the journey to other planets. They were for traveling around the planet, or up and down to larger ships in orbit. They hadn't taken in a ship like this. The ship hisses and hums as it nears the ground, engines whirring to maintain a stable landing with its less than experienced pilots.
As the hissing and whirring quiets down, Drak and company wait for the departure of its passengers.
Camille and Julian, Drak can certainly account for, but he couldn't be sure if they had brought along anyone else. Of course, the request he put out was for Camille herself. Julian's more of an added bonus, if he chose to stick around.
Exiting from the boarding hatch comes 3 figures.
Camille, Julian and Ellie. Drak is honestly kind of relieved that Camille brought Ellie along. She is the tech-savvy one of the two and has a good sense for her surroundings. Unlike Camille, who tends to go headfirst without thinking.
Welcome to Yvalt. Drak is promptly interrupted by Camille, excitedly running over, squealing in an unintelligible manner. The guard that Drak brought with him are unsure as to how to respond.
She's rushing forward, but has no obvious weapon. Drak is completely calm, but they don't know this woman. Then in a flash, Camille has come to a complete stop and given a somewhat overeager salute to their commanding officer.
I'm glad to see you all. Camille, Ellie, 70% of Julian.
Oh, har, har. While this shell may have been stripped, my mind is still more than capable. So what's this assignment you had?
We can discuss that in the briefing room. Please, come inside. We can go over details when you're ready. Two of you are likely tired from the flight, and it will take some time to get the hub link installed.
There isn't much of an argument here. Truth be told, Julian is more eager to take in the sights of this new world than get back in that dull craft again. As they depart, a team of guards enter the saucer, intending to sweep it for any stowaways. Once it's clear, the engineering team can move in with the equipment.
They're given a brief tour of anything and everything that they pass on their way to Drak's excuse for a command building.
The newcomers get more than a few strange looks from the various insects that populate the colony. But hey, there are a few dozen humans here. Yeah, certainly not the same numbers, but they're here.
And they're also giving them a weird look.
Okay, it's more so that they're new here and they're being escorted by Drak himself that stands out to them, and not that a pair of humans have arrived.
Okay. Julian is definitely getting some weird looks based on the fact that he isn't a dog.
And that there really aren't any other giant robots on the planet. But he's gotten used to those looks by now.
The debriefing room is a small, windowless room that has an odd odor of industrial cleaner, much like a cleaning closet.
It is, nor was, a cleaning closet, but when they cleared a nest of critters out, it was unpleasant to smell. And the stains were particularly stubborn, so they doused the room with gallons of cleaner. Unpleasant, but effective.
It's been about an hour since our little saucer thieves arrived in Yvalt. They've since piled into this not uncomfortably small room, but still small, especially relative to Julian. A folding table has been set up, along with an old corkboard someone found.
Drak isn't really sure what to do with it, but somehow feels right. Like it belongs in this weird, poorly assembled room.
Drak has already explained the general idea that he's asking of them. This colony needs a way to get critical supplies and open communication with other planets that aren't aware of them.
Currently, they neither have the infrastructure to communicate consistently over such long distance, nor the ships to send out.
The ships they have are a mix of warships and colony ships.
Both require crews of dozens to hundreds, and neither of which are really useful for what they need right now. In the future, sure, but not right now.
You would be sent across the galaxy to trade materials and establish relationships with potential allies. In between these assignments, you would be free to both move about Yvalt, as well as journey to any other worlds you wish.
An interesting proposition. But aren't you forgetting something? Of the three of us, I am the only one with a translatable language. And despite my detailed arguments to the contrary, most people find my personality disagreeable.
You wouldn't be traveling alone. On these assignments, you would be accompanied by an envoy who would be speaking on our behalf.
So we'd be interstellar taxi drivers then. Oh, joy.
It is your choice whether or not to accept the job. We've all fought together on Thea Prime, and I consider you all my friends. As such, you'll have a safe port here should you choose to leave.
Julian looked at the two women, who looked up at him, eyes full of concern. Julian didn't really care that they were, quote, interstellar taxi drivers. His natural response was to complain and be contrarian to anyone with a position over him, even if it's a perceived one.
Mayhaps this job would allow me to make use of my particular talents.
What?
Ellie looks at Drak.
There is a moment of understanding between the two.
Yes, Ellie. I assume he means his talent for murder.
I was designed for war, and I'm quite good at it. Just tell me that some of these assignments might involve the need for extreme violence.
Not every mission will be necessarily safe. I will leave to your envoy's discretion how far you may retaliate to any threats. This first assignment will have you escorting Emma to the planet Etho in Sector 6.
The mission involves meeting with an industrial company on the planet and trading some old materials from the defunct mining colony in exchange for newly forged materials that they could use to build up Yvalt. Drak admits that he doesn't have a whole lot of information on who these people are or how Emma found them, but he trusts that she knows what she's doing. Emma will be able to give them more information on who they're meeting once they're en route. And what Drak does know of the planet is that it hasn't reached an interstellar age, and minor conflicts within it are somewhat commonplace.
A detail that drew Julian's attention. If you're joining Emma, we can ensure you will have usable weapons and body armor.
He addressed Julian directly.
We'll see what we can put together for you, although it may end up being more haphazard. So, how about it?
There was a moment of short conversation between Camille and Ellie. After several seconds of hums and wahs, they nodded their approval and gave a thumbs up.
Julian added his affirmation afterward, having waited to see how the other two would vote. He was all for the idea, at least as a trial run, but he couldn't fly the ship, so he still needed them around. That's excellent to hear. Emma should be ready to go by tomorrow. I'll give her the notice and send you her contact information.
A few thank yous and directions to general quarters later, and Camille and Ellie were off, leaving Drak and Julian alone in the debriefing room.
Drak, I wanted to speak to you. Alone.
He then produced a small data drive from a nearly hidden slot on his chassis.
Before we left, I took the liberty to download and archive several hundred gigabytes of schematics, contact lists, and research data from Thea Prime and its former Ascendancy holdings. I have a proposition.
It must be a particularly big one for you to burn so many bridges to come here.
Drak eyed the drive. Thea Prime would not be happy to learn they had stolen information. Or at least purchased known stolen information. They might not find out, but Drak wasn't keen on potentially throwing away an ally.
Of course, this information might prove necessary in repairing and modifying both Julian and the saucer.
Although he would have preferred to have been offered it legitimately, he'd hear Julian out first before he made any agreements.
Yes, well, also on this disk is a copy of my source code and memories up to my departure.
It is smart for you to have a backup made. There was something else here. Drak could feel it.
He wouldn't be asking for a backup to be kept safe, not for such a significant bribe. He wanted something more.
That's not why you're offering it to me, is it?
Well, there are certain files, pieces of code, sections of me that are inaccessible.
Julian had a history on Thea Prime. He hadn't always cared for whom he killed. And when he was recovered by the Resistance, large swaths of his coding and memory had to be manipulated or scrubbed clean so that he could be sent out on the front lines again.
I need access restored to these parts of me. I want these shackles removed so I can think and act freely. But I can't take any direct action to alter the code.
This presented an interesting moral quandary for Drak. The way Julian was treated by Thea Prime could easily fill a philosophical and ethical textbook. He had been essentially lobotomized and used for war. Although this reflected the original intention of his creation, he had no real free will in joining the Resistance, and once the war was done, he was stripped down to work a quasi-civilian job. However, Julian has free will. Otherwise, he wouldn't be here asking this.
Drak needed to discuss this with others, especially anyone who had experience with AIs. I will see what can be done, but I cannot make any promises.
Thank you.
And with that, he was off, leaving Drak with a drive of stolen information, a robot's mind, and quite the philosophical debate ahead of him.